Hey guys, and welcome to another manga review. This time I'm going to be reviewing Volume 2 of Apple Black by our favorite white manga. Before I start this review, I want to thank everyone who has subscribed to my channel, has supported me on Instagram, has supported me on even Webtoons. Thank you for your comments on there too. I'm really glad. I really love the support that you guys are giving my series on there. And for those of you who haven't seen it, of course, follow the description below of this video and it'll take you to my Instagram page where you can follow me there, my Webtoons where you could read the beginning chapter of D Hunter, and also my other series Vanguard that you could check out on Webtoons. So when it comes to the story, now I believe that the story is possibly the weaker part of Apple Black. Not because I don't think the story is terrible and stuff like that. It's just the way he sets certain things up. For example, in the first volume of Apple Black, the idea of breaking ivory, which is pretty much what he calls a leveling up in Apple Black, which I consider to be more like his version of Super Saiyan, the Super Saiyan trope that we see a lot in manga and anime. There are two levels of breaking walls. It's an art or technique in Apple Black that sorcerers use to pretty much level up to gain more power and to be able to cast more high-level spells. What I don't like about it is that the first volume, I didn't much have a problem with Ryuzaki going into it, because when he went into it in the first volume, spoilers alert, he breaks the wall of ivory by force, pretty much, and his body starts going into like an intense state of pain, pretty much, because when you break ivory in this world, it's pretty much the breaking of walls. In Apple Black, it's pretty much limiters that are placed on you so that you don't absorb too much of the magical power energy in the world. And that is pretty much used as a limiter so you don't get too much and pretty much die. So it made sense Ryuzaki couldn't handle it because he was breaking it by force. And you could see in the first volume how it wasn't really helping him out, especially since he was in what this world White calls Nirvania. So Nirvania is pretty much a place where sorcerers enter. It's kind of like the state of mind, or like the world mind thing that Bleach had with Ichigo when he enters that place to fight the Hollow Ichigo. And it's pretty much like that, and where you're pretty much like the ruler of this world, and you control it with your power. You pretty much control this area with you're pretty much king of this area. You're the god of this area. You control it, all this stuff. They even have they could even create like simulated worlds, which is pretty much the place where Ryuzaki and the other two, Sano and them, went in when they were in this detention in the first volume. If you guys read the first volume, they get into detention and pretty much they get thrown into this world. Well, they enter this world sneakingly, right? They enter it by sneaking into it. So the whole point of that point was a bit of the backstory about Ryuzaki and his backstory and stuff, and how the first introduction of the breaking of walls, which was pretty much the breaking of ivory. What happened to Ryuzaki is that since he's not able to control it, since he has to go enter it by force, because he's still like a low-level student, I guess. He's a student. He hasn't really mastered the art of breaking ivory. And I thought that was cool because it gave the rest of the characters pretty much a level cap, you know? So even if Sano and the rest of them are strong, there's a particular level that they can't pass because they're still too weak. And so that was cool because it gave you, he pretty much created a power system based on that limiter. Now in this volume, which I don't necessarily agree with what he did. Spoilers alert again. Neon and Lily end up fighting one of the bosses, right? One of the bosses of the Banbury pirates that are invading. So the Banbury pirates are invading, as it was in the first volume, the end of the first volume. They're invading Black Bottom Island, and so the sorcerers start defending their homes and stuff because like the Dark Lords have been blown to shit. So you don't know what happened to them yet. So it's the other sorcerers now that are pretty much fighting and defending the city. So Neon and Lily end up rescuing these two orphan kids from the Old Garth. If you remember Old Garth, it was from the first volume. I believe it was simulated in the first volume in the Narvania space that was created for Ryuzaki to fight. But this time it's the actual Old Garth. And so they went in there, and pretty much, obviously this boss that they're fighting is very strong. Neon goes in using her strength amplifier magic that amplifies her strength, kind of like, from what it looked like to me, this was what White was going after, but it looked like, to me, it reminded me of seeing Sakura fight Sasori, pretty much. How she uses chakra to make her stronger, superhuman strong, and that's what I understood. At least that's what I got from what Neon was doing. So she amplifies her strength using her magic power and stuff. At least that's what it looked like to me. That's what I understood from reading. And this is another thing about his story. Sometimes it's not a lot of things are very much explained in terms of like in this volume at least. Not a lot of stuff are explained about how do these different spells kind of work and stuff. I understood it in the first volume because, like, from what I understood from the first volume, each person was from a different tribe and had their own special type of spell that they could use. Like Sano had teleportation, and that was part of his clans or tribes, like, magic power, signature magic power. So that's what I understood from there. In this, not a lot of things are much explained in terms of their power. That's why it was kind of hard to understand. Neon is fighting the boss, and she's realizing that she can't beat him because she's still too weak, obviously, because she's still a student. So, she tells Lily to get the two kids out of the way, and she decides to pretty much break Ivory, which I was like, okay, what happened here? Because I thought that breaking Ivory was something that was you had to master that technique to actually get into there. If you break it by force, you're pretty much possibly going to kill yourself if you do that. Now I understand that it was this technique of using the last resort, a forbidden spell or something as a last resort that might cost her life, to make it more dramatic and stuff like that. I understood that, but in my opinion, by doing that, he actually diminished specialty of breaking Ivory, because it feels like anyone could break Ivory. I understood that the Dark Lords and stuff and the people who have mastered the art of breaking Ivory could break Ivory successfully, but if anyone could forcefully break it, its appeal, in my opinion, diminishes. It's not really that big of a deal anymore, because if anyone could break it, then what's the whole point of it anyways? It just seems the whole point of using it as like a power scale is kind of like a way of scaling the power or power system in general is diminished, because if all these students could break it by force and pretty much have a certain amount of power where they could fight, to me it diminishes the entire point of breaking Ivory or even the power system itself. It's not special. It's the same thing as Super Saiyan and Dragon Ball. Especially nowadays with Dragon Ball Super, where there's a whole bunch of different Super Saiyan forms now. Super Saiyan Blue, Super Saiyan God. And when he first entered Super Saiyan, the establishment, the payoff of that establishment, the payoff of that situation was lifted higher because it had more appeal to it. It's this thing, is this idea of Super Saiyan and Dragon Ball is what I'm seeing of turning into Super Saiyan and having all these like different forms, I guess, and easily entering these forms is what I'm kind of seeing with Breaking Ivory and Apple Black. I just don't think if you have something as special as Breaking Ivory, if this is supposed to be a level up, I don't think everybody should be able to enter it easily, especially like these sorcerers who are still technically students. Don't get me wrong, I think this is like the first volume it said that this was their last year as students, so they're about to like graduate to get their cloaks, because they're not cloaks yet. They don't have their cloaks yet. I understood why Ryuzaki was doing it, because it's his personality, it's the way he fights, it's the way he's been training his body pretty much for years in Nirvania, because he was in Nirvania, so it made more sense. In this same volume, spoilers alert, Ryuzaki and even their teacher gets killed. Mikkel, I think that's his name. They both die pretty much. Well, at least it looks like they both die. And when Ryuzaki died, he actually broke Ivory again. But this time he was pretty much like, it looked like he was gonna turn into a damn bomb. And the guy came in with a scythe and just killed him right then and there before he could do anything. So there it looked like he was gonna kill himself, obviously, because the whole idea of becoming like a human sponge for all that magical energy, you pretty much are, it's kind of like thinking of it as a balloon. You fill up a balloon with a bunch of air, eventually it'll get so much air that it pops. And that's what I saw with what happened with Ryuzaki, that he broke Ivory to absorb all that magical energy so he could turn into a human bomb. That's what I understood, but before he could do anything, he kind of died. Now Neon is doing it, and she's not even in Nirvania. She's doing it, and to me, like, I'm not striking his use of using this trope, I guess, but it would have been more interesting, in my opinion. It would have been way more interesting if Lily and Neon end up fighting together, and they use their different techniques and abilities to pretty much trick the guy, capture the guy, and win. Maybe he doesn't. Maybe they don't accomplish it. Maybe that would have been cooler too. Maybe they don't succeed in pretty much defeating the guy, but they're able to fight the guy long enough so the other two could escape to safety. The two orphan kids that they were pretty much trying to protect could escape to safety, and these two get defeated. It makes more sense to me because they're still students. They're not even cloaks yet. In my opinion, they shouldn't be even fighting toe to toe with these guys, especially Neon, who enters the Breaking Ivory point, I guess, the Breaking Ivory form, technique, whatever you want to call it. And somehow she could just do it without much of a struggle. And I think that right there is diminishes this technique, or this form, I guess, this level up that he calls. It diminishes the whole idea of it, and pretty much like the coolness to me, in my personal opinion. It just diminishes it completely. So in my opinion, if he wanted to do something like this, he should have had Lily and Neon join forces. Maybe Lily is successfully able to get those kids to escape, and right when Neon's about to get cornered, Lily comes in with her plant magic or something, and she's able to stop the guy before he gives Neon the killing blow, And then they start to fight together and stuff. They realize that they can't fight them. They can't fight on equal terms and stuff because they haven't mastered Breaking Ivory. Not only would it be a waste, because if they absorb too much magic energy, they'll pretty much kill themselves. They don't want to do that. They want to fight long enough to get those kids to escape, and then maybe they trick him and stuff. Maybe they I would suggest probably even looking at some possible Naruto fights, like the early Naruto fights that had more planning outs, that they planned out their fight. The fight was more planned out, the trickery was actually a surprise and stuff. And you could probably do something like that where they use their particular power sets and stuff. Maybe Lily used her plant to trap the guy somewhere and the guy's trapped. And then you see Neon come in with her superpower spell and punches the dude in the face. You know? Something like that. And even after what would be way cool also, if like even after it seems that he's been defeated, the guy rises back up, traps them two, and like pretty much beats them up. You know, they'll beat him and almost beats them up to a point where it almost kills them and they pass out. And the guy just goes on his way, like way more damage than he thought he would. And because of that, he doesn't kill them because those two have pretty much earned his respect as a sorcerer, you know? Something like that. That would have been, in my opinion, that would have been cool. Because, as I said, this ability to just break ivory this easily, especially when they're students, to me, honestly, it just doesn't click. Now, there were places that he used, as I said, that he used it that worked. For example, Jacoby is one of the cloaks who befriended Sano in the first volume. And in this volume, he's fighting the Sun Prince to try to protect Sano. And it made sense because I understand that he's a cloak. He's obviously a higher tier cloak compared to Sano and the rest of his friends. And it kind of makes sense because obviously he should be stronger. And actually, his ability to break ivory, when he got stronger and stuff, you could see he gets stronger, but he wasn't able to defeat the Sun Prince. So that this technique has its advantages, but it also has its flaws, and it showed really well in the fight with him and Jacoby when he was talking about the break when he broke his ivory wall. He was still not able to beat the Sun Prince, and this fight also gave the Sun Prince his level. So he's stronger than your average cloak. I believe it's one thing that this story really made well. It showed the power scale of most of the characters, from the students to the cloaks to even like the Dark Lords and stuff. It showed better how the power leveling of each character is at, pretty much as terms of level, which I really appreciated, and I thought which was really good, which was really shown well in the comic. In the places where it was used poorly, it diminished the whole idea of breaking walls, of breaking ivory especially. In general, what I think this plot, this story, this arc right now, of the invasion of Black Bottom as an idea, as a story arc in general, but I think that the arc came a little bit too early in the story. This arc of the Banbury Pirates invasion, the Sun Prince invasion, you know, I believe that this story would have been better if it was a little bit pushed back. But I think the second volume should have been, maybe they go on like a mission, you know. Maybe Mikkel takes them on like a quote-unquote field trip, shows them what it means to be like a cloak, what their jobs are going to be. Because technically they are students still, you know. They're still students, and they're still learning what it means to be a cloak. He could then start to establish more of the Banbury Pirates, what they want. He could start establish even the Sun Prince. You know, maybe this particular mission that they go in, they get attacked by people who support the Sun Prince, and you start learning more about the actual country in itself. He could have established more of the world. Use the second volume as more of world building, and more of world building in terms of the general of what it means to actually be a cloak. What are they going to be doing in their different Dark Lord groups, I guess? You know, like, what are they actually going to do as cloaks? And even a little bit more of, like, the city. Give it more background, because a lot of it seemed very much streamlined, and from the first volume, and even a little bit now, it seems that Sano is kind of being dragged, and he seems a little bit passive as a character instead of active as a character. And that's why I think this arc came a little bit too early, because he's still a student. He hasn't really graduated and stuff. I just feel that this arc right now has come a little bit too early. It's a lot of magic and flares and stuff, but not as much depth that I wanted in the second volume, and that I'm getting from this arc. Now, don't get me wrong, the fights are fun, the introduction of these new characters are fun, but I needed a bit more before I got slammed by all these people coming in. You know, I needed to understand a bit more. I think it should have been more established, a bit more of the world before he started an invasion of the city, which we don't know much about. And so for the story, I'm going to give it a 3.5 out of 5. So like a 3.5 or 4. And in total, I think this book is an 8 out of 10. Reviewing next is from a friend of mine called Continental Kings. So I hope you guys stick around for that. Thanks for the support. Please don't forget to subscribe if you're new. Like the channel. Like the video. Share it as much as you possibly can. And I'll see you next time